Watching a special presentation of WENY News.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for a WENY special presentation. I'm Renata Steele. Tonight, we are talking about the COVID-19 coronavirus. We're having a community conversation about the virus and how it's impacting our lives here in the Twin Tiers. Now, WENY News is committed to providing you factual, reliable, and calm information about COVID-19 in a way that is informative to you. All of us here at Lilly Broadcasting and at WENY, our goal is to inform and not alarm, so you can make the most informed decisions that impact you and your family. Now, we are all working through this together, and as this virus trickles down, it may not be impacting you personally in regards to your health, but it may be affecting your job and your child's education, and it's affecting all of us too. Tonight, we have assembled a group of local medical and educator professionals to join the conversation about COVID-19. So I'd like to introduce our group this evening. We've got Dr. Thomas Douglas, who is the superintendent of Horsehead Central School District. We have Dr. Justin Nistico, an infectious disease specialist with Arnett Health, and Sam Shaw, a registered nurse and the Continuous Improvement Program Facilitator with Guthrie Health. We will also be having a discussion with a doctor at Cayuga Health that will be live on location coming up in the program. But first, I want to take a moment to welcome all three of you here to the WENY studio.
Thank you.
So this is something that really has been, I think, on the forefront of everyone's minds the past couple of weeks. But for those who are not clear exactly on what we hear the words COVID-19, we hear coronavirus everywhere we turn these days, but what exactly is it? So Dr. Nistico, I want to start with you just for an explanation on what the COVID-19 coronavirus is.
So it's a specific virus that is new to the community. So a lot of the viruses that we are used to seeing, some people have developed immunity to. This specific virus, they call it the novel or the new coronavirus 2019, is a new virus where our immunity systems are not, they're not familiar with this virus. So a lot of people are getting sick from it. Typical symptoms, a lot of the three particular symptoms you should know about are cough, fever, and shortness of breath. And those are the big three for this particular virus.
And now those are the same symptoms that are so common for so many other respiratory issues, the flu even. So what are some of the, I guess, hallmarks that would make this different from, say, if I have, say, walking pneumonia or if I'm experiencing flu-like symptoms?
So it is hard to differentiate the infections from one another, but what we're noticing is that people who have either been traveling or have traveled or have been on a cruise ship or had been, on an airplane, we've noticed there's a higher rate of this infection going around. And as we move closer and closer into the spring, we're seeing less of those other viruses. But currently, right now, it is kind of mixed in with flu. The concerning thing about coronavirus or COVID 2019 or 19, that particular infection can become severe for people that are older than the age of 60 with some medical conditions such as hypertension, diabetes, and then those who are over the age of 80, they're most at risk for this infection where it can become quite severe.
Okay, and now Nurse Shaw, you're with Guthrie Health, and a lot of people are coming in and with these health concerns. There have been people that have been referred for testing. And so for people that are, whether they're coming to Arnett, Cayuga, or Guthrie, they've been referred by their physician. They have the symptoms that are indicating that maybe some further testing should be done. Can you walk me through what that process looks like in terms of taking that sample to send out for testing?
Absolutely. This is a nasopharyngeal swab, so the same essentially as some of the other viral swabs that we do. So it is sort of a long Q-tip that we use to get to the back of the nose, kind of swirl it around a little bit. Not the most comfortable thing, but it does go by very quickly. And then it's put into the lab medium and then taken to the lab.
Okay, and now to follow up on that, Dr. Nistico, you talked about some of the symptoms of COVID-19, but who should be tested, and I'll let either one of you answer this question, who should be tested for coronavirus and who should not be at this point?
So Currently, the way we've been doing it is there is screening questions that we do ask. So if they're coming from a coronavirus region that has a high volume of coronavirus, now it's a lot more common in the United States of America and in New York State. And if they have those particular symptoms of cough, fever, and shortness of breath, we have a discussion with that individual, and if they meet certain criteria based upon their symptoms, we would send the testing that we were just talking about with the nasopharyngeal, or this kind of swab that goes into the nose, and we send it for testing to the state level.
Okay, and now Nurse Shaw, we talk a lot about preventing the spread, and we're going to get into that a little bit more. We're hearing a lot about social distancing, in particular, staying home. We're seeing some economic impacts as the state and the nation try to reduce the spread. But what are some simple tips that people can take in their own everyday lives to help prevent the spread of coronavirus?
I'm sure you've seen by now, this is one of the things that we talk about all the time, is hand washing. So hand washing is the first and foremost. That's kind of our base practice for almost everything we're doing, especially for fighting the spread of any kind of infection or virus. The other thing is, of course, the social distancing, and then if you do have to sneeze or cough, kind of using that motion into your elbow and trying to distance yourself from other people.
And that's a conversation I've been having with my family. I have a 6-year-old little boy. We know kids, we'll talk to you, Dr. Douglas, about this a little bit later, but the impact on children, but just teaching especially the young ones how to keep their hands clean and cough into that elbow. And I know it can be a challenge out there.
Sometimes they like it if you call it the Dracula method or the vampire method.
Oh, I like that one. We call it the germ jail for my son. So let us know, we're streaming this program online on WENY.com as well as the WENY TV News Facebook page. And if you're a parent, let us know, how are you communicating with your children in regards to keeping your hands clean and helping prevent the spread of germs? We do have to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are going to welcome in a doctor from Cayuga Health into the conversation. They're going to be joining us live from Ithaca, so stay with us. And we appreciate you watching this WENY special presentation about the COVID-19 coronavirus. Just within the last hour, Tompkins County now announcing they have 6 confirmed cases of COVID-19, testing underway for many more. WENY's Christina Episcopo is live at Cayuga Health in Ithaca to learn more about how they're testing patients and moving forward when dealing with this virus. Christina?
Good evening, Renata. I am here at Cayuga Health in Ithaca, and I'm here with Dr. McQueen, and he is a doctorate in infectious diseases. And if you joined us in the 5:30, we talked on to how Tompkins County now has 6 confirmed cases of COVID-19, and we'd like to talk a little bit more onto that and how Cayuga Health is handling this.
Well, we're doing a few things, starting with our preparation that we've been using for the last few weeks. We anticipated this, we're getting ready for it. Some of the things include expanding our testing to the community. We're putting a site together that's been up and running for a couple of days to make sure we have the ability to test and detect cases. We're doing things to make sure we keep our employees safe, and have started restricting some of the access to the hospital.
Now, actually, that is one thing that we did recently find out, is that Cayuga Health is going to be restricting certain visitors now. If we could talk on to that a little bit about what the visitation limitations are.
Sure. So for a few days, we have limited people based on their symptoms and excluded people if they had any symptoms. However, today the governor issued a guidance that we would need to limit all visitors to the hospital. So that's been our big move today.
Okay, and so one of the other things that Cayuga Health is now doing, especially out here in Ithaca, is that there is a drive-through testing center which has been pretty active this week. But one of the things that we really want to drive home and clarify is that you need to hit specific qualifications to actually go through this. Can you tell me what those qualifications are?
Exactly. So the process is that a patient, if they feel they have symptoms, would call their primary physician, and they would screen them and determine if they're appropriate for testing here. If they do, they'll transmit an order to us, and then the patient would make an appointment here. They come to the testing site on Craft Road. It's a drive-up, and they stay in their car the whole time. They have a nasal swab performed by someone who's in full protective equipment, and they go on their way. The important thing for people to remember is that if they're tested, they'll be followed by the Tompkins County Health Department and will need to isolate at home until they get a negative result back.
And speaking on to those results, I know a big question is how long is this going to be taking? That way people know that are self-quarantine or in isolation, how long they might have to be waiting for these test results back.
We're seeing the range is about 2 to 4 days. Hopefully, as the state brings on more testing capacity, that number will decrease.
Okay, and so another major concern, especially for those who are in healthcare working, is that how are you keeping your healthcare workers here safe along with the visitors who, even though you guys have had to limit visitation, how are you keeping everyone safe as they're coming into the building and working with these patients?
Well, we're screening people at the entrances, as I mentioned. That includes employees, making sure that if anyone's sick, they're not coming into the building. We're designing processes and changing the flow within the building to limit exposure, to do a little bit of social distancing even within the hospital, and have spent quite a lot of time making sure that there's hand hygiene solution available, that people are remembering to wash their hands, and to be extra cautious when we're seeing patients who may have any symptoms that are reminiscent of COVID-19. We're isolating them immediately, even before we have decided to do a test.
And then finally, you did mention to me earlier for patients that are in the Cayuga Health that, especially when it comes to maternity sections and whatnot, that there even is limitations with that, because that's something that obviously can't stop every day. You can't stop a baby from being born.
Exactly. So we are, as the governor has requested, we're limiting visitors, but we are allowed to have one support person that's medically necessary with the patient who's giving birth, and so that's the exception that we've made.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. McQueen. And thank you for everyone tuning in for hearing how Cayuga Health is working. And I'm going to toss it back to you in the studio, Renata.
All right, Christina, thank you. And we're going to be answering some of your questions after the break. We'll be right back in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back. And now during the broadcast, we've been streaming this live on the WENY TV News Facebook page. So many of you are tuning in and a lot of you have some questions. WENY's Nicholas Catrini has been monitoring that feed. He's been writing down some of your questions, and here's an opportunity to have some of them answered. So Nick, why don't you throw something at us?
Okay, Renata, the first question out of the gate tonight, Lisa had asked, is it helpful to gargle with hot salt water or keep your throat clear from infection as the coronavirus seems to head there?
So, Sam, are you okay with answering that question, or maybe Dr.
Nistico?
Okay, Dr. Nistico.
So there hasn't been any positive reports about it helping so much. Obviously, good oral care is always a good thing to have with any particular virus. But specifically for the coronavirus, gargling with salt water hasn't really proven to be of any help. But obviously good oral hygiene has. So that would be the most important information or advice, is to make sure you have good oral hygiene.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next question. Nick?
Okay, next question. Jessica, the coronavirus.
So I guess that's another question for Dr. Nistico. We're talking about the novel COVID-19 coronavirus and the number of strands.
So currently the strain has been just the one particular, they call it the SARS-CoV-2 strain. It's a specific, they call it a beta coronavirus, or part of a specific virus family, but not specifically any other strains. One COVID-19 strand, the strain that they're talking about, but no two strains, just one.
Okay. All right, Nick, how about another question?
And then Jackson asked, is COVID-19 airborne?
Okay, so that's a really good question. Nurse Shaw, if you don't mind answering that one, because we talked a little bit about the hand washing and sneezing and particulates going into the air.
Currently we're using droplet precautions, so in that way it goes through the air is how we're seeing that. But again, this is a new virus. We're still studying and seeing all the ways it could be transmitted. So right now it's very new. So we're not really sure that we have all of the information to answer that as well as we would like to.
Okay, all right. Nick, why don't we take one more question for this segment?
Okay, and lastly, Emily wants to know what supplies will help fight the virus and which ones should people avoid taking?
Okay, Dr. Nistico, I'm going to toss that one to you again.
So the supplies to help fight or combat the virus, the things that are most important is making sure that you practice good hand hygiene. So obviously an antibacterial soap and using water to clean your hands. Things that are also important, I guess, for the household specifically is cleaning products. So local cleaning products that you can get, Lysol, Clorox, or any cleaning products for the household. And to clean commonly touched surfaces, doorknobs, tables that you're using in the home, and to make sure that the bathroom stays clean, because that's an important place where we see a lot of spread of viral particles, and that would be most concerning.
Okay. Well, we are going to continue our program. We do have to take another quick break, but when we come back, we want to talk about so many of you in this community are parents, grandparents, and now suddenly having to make very significant adjustments to your lives. And that's why Dr. Thomas Douglas with Horsehead Central School District is here to talk about some of that impact. So stay with us. We'll be right back. You're watching a WENY special presentation on COVID-19. Stay with us. Welcome back, and we want to thank so many of you for weighing in on social media as you watch this program. There's a lot of good questions being asked. Please keep them coming. We may get an opportunity to come back to you and get some more of those questions answered. But now I kind of want to shift gears and talk about the educational impact of all of this. Superintendent Dr. Thomas Douglas with Horsehead Central School District is here tonight. And Superintendent Douglas, you had to make a really hard decision just a couple of days ago, and not just for Horseheads, really all of the districts across our region making that announcement kind of collectively that we need to close down a school, extend dismissal time right now, at least through the beginning of April towards spring break. But talk to me about what went into having to make that decision and make that announcement to families in the district.
I think across the whole state, everybody, public health agencies, the county executives, the superintendents, we're all communicating. It's just that trying to find the legal authority to do so and overcome some of the obstacles that were in the way. It was really about superintendents and their county executives and their public health agencies determining what's the most aggressive, what's the most progressive way of trying to stop the spread, or as we've been educating, flattening the curve. Mm-hmm. And I think that started to drive it, especially when you have time to act. Let's not be behind the curve, let's get ahead of the curve. And I think that was the emphasis here, and we want to thank the county executive and Peter Bizzetti, at least in Chemung, and I know Jack and Darlene over in Steuben were very proactive, and we can't do it without them.
And when you're talking about having to dismiss school for an extended period of time, knowing that not all families are going to have immediate access maybe
Correct.
To the child care that they need, or just to know that those kids aren't going to be going through the halls for a couple of weeks.
I can't say enough about any district's staff, their community, our food service, our bus drivers. There's so many things in our organization. When you take the students who you give the gift of education to every day and try to put it on hiatus but keep a sense of calm, I'm very proud of all the actions that the communities, the villages, the cities are doing right now, because you are seeing an unprecedented event and you are seeing a lot of good things come out of a very difficult, tragic situation that we just don't know how to go about it in the right way. That's the most confusing thing. I would ask everybody, if you do not have the connectivity, reach out. There's our phone lines, there's our email lines. If you don't have the internet connectivity, write us a letter to our address. We will be monitoring. It may be a little slow getting back, but we will get back to everyone within the Horseheads community, and my fellow superintendents, I know they're doing the same.
And now what has Horseheads done from the teacher's perspective to make sure that the children are continuing to learn? We want to make it clear, the school districts have come out and said that this is not a vacation. We want to make sure that you are continuing to keep your mind sharp so that when you come back to school, we can pick up right where we left off. So what are some of the things the teachers have been doing?
I think we were fortunate to have Monday with our staff and students, because what happened is that allowed them to make the connections, and it gave us a little extra preparation time with them. So our students are connecting as much as possible. We have a good connection rate through the internet, but if not, we also have built in connections through families and phone to get a hold of them. We are focusing on remediation right now, because as we know with summer breaks, it's a break, but we worry about retention. Like you said, this is a dismissal, and we want to try to work on the retention and the review right now to harden the mastery of concepts. As it goes on, we may have to shift. We just do not have that fully thought out yet. And I know my team, as well as teams in every other district, are working on that and awaiting guidance from the state, because we just don't know how long or of a duration.
Right, and so right now I think most of the districts are planning to come back at some point in early to mid-April. Of course, you know, things seem to change really day by day and sometimes hour by hour as we work through this as a community.
That's been our concern, because Chemung and Steuben definitely had county executives that were proactive, and we are out until the 14th. However, the state has rescinded its executive order. Now we're under a new executive order that we're supposed to be back on the 1st, but I would tell everybody that's cautious. That's just so that there's one simplistic message, and I think it will be extended. I can't say, but I just don't see we're operating that fast to bring students back. After all, schools are a collection during the flu, as my colleagues know. This is still some of the flu. It doesn't mean you ignore anything else, but our stomach bug has been going around, strep has been going around, our flu has been going around. But we want to take those proactive measures to try to minimize. So we are looking at our community and actually asking them, and it's very difficult, pretend like it's a 12-foot snowfall. Your weathermen will like that. And they love snow days, but do something active on that snow day and stay inside unless it's necessary to get out. That will help flatten that curve overall.
Okay, we want to talk about flattening the curve, but we got to take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, and that has just really been, I feel like we did not get to everything that we wanted to talk about. So we are going to continue this conversation beyond 6:30. However, we are going to have to say goodbye to our viewers on WENY, ABC, and CBS. Now, if you're watching this on television and you want to continue watching, we encourage you to either go to a couple different places. You can go to the WENY TV News Facebook page. We're streaming it live on Facebook Live for you tonight. You can also go to our website, weny.com/live, and watch our live stream. Thank you to all of you who have been joining us, and thank you to the community for all of your support. We're going to continue this program. We're going to keep going online, so if you want to keep watching there, stay with us. All right, and for those of you who are continuing to watch this WENY News special presentation online, thank you for staying with us tonight. For those of you who have been watching on Facebook Live, so many of you have questions about the coronavirus, how it's affecting our community. WENY's Nick Quattrini has been interacting with you online. He's been writing down some of your questions. So why don't we check in with Nick again tonight just to see some of the questions that people in the community are wanting to know. So Nick, what do you have for us?
Okay, thanks, Renata. Lulu wants to know, can clothing and shoes carry the virus?
So that's a good question, especially I think as we're telling people to cough into their elbow to prevent the spread of germs and droplets. But as we go through our daily lives, is, I guess, breathable fabric something that we need to be concerned about transporting the virus?
So I think most importantly is if the clothing is visibly soiled, like with any sort of mucus or any sort of bodily fluid where we can have the infection be spread, there is a concern for the virus remaining on surfaces for a prolonged period of time. Now, the way we would go about it is, say you work in a situation where you're going through the day, the best option is you're coming home from work, or I know a lot of people are in the house because of the self-quarantine or just being home from work. You would want to wash that clothing as soon as you can using a laundry sanitizer. And that's just because if you're coughing and sneezing into your clothing throughout the day, it's just the best practice.
Okay, hopefully that answers the question to that viewer. Let's take another one, Nick.
Okay, another question. Tammy wants to know, is ibuprofen contributing to fatalities?
So this is something that we have been seeing online, I think, the past couple of days, that there's been some articles, and I'll let you guys weigh in maybe on the factuality of those articles or not, that you should, if you have coronavirus, that you should not be taking ibuprofen, that it can make the symptoms of it worse. Do either one of you want to weigh in on it? Is there any truth?
I've not heard anything or seen anything about that, have you?
So currently there is concern because there were some articles that were brought up in this last week that I did wind up reading and looking into. It's not as clear as factual to say that that's the case. There are certain situations where ibuprofen can be harmful if you have a very severe case of infection, where inflammation sometimes can be driven by taking the ibuprofen, and that I wouldn't say so much that it causes more harm than good. There is some data out there to say if you do have the virus, to take Tylenol or acetaminophen, or you can mix the two together and alternate. And that, I think, is the best practice right now. We don't have really concrete evidence to say that's true.
Okay.
I think to be clear about the mixing, you want to make sure that you're alternating.
Yeah, alternating
not taking both at the same
absolutely,
time.
yes.
Just to be clear for viewers.
Yes.
Absolutely. Okay, Nick, how about one more?
Okay, Susan would like to know, does the pneumonia shot help the elderly against the pneumonia caused by COVID-19?
So the pneumonia shot, it will help you against a specific strain of bacteria called Strep pneumoniae, which is a specific type of pneumonia, but it doesn't help against all causes of pneumonia. So cases of coronavirus, you can have a different type of pneumonia because it depends on the bacteria that's present, or in just cases where there could be inflammation. But the pneumonia shot will protect against a specific type of bacterial infection.
Okay, and so Nurse Shaw, I actually have a question for you, and it applies to Dr. Nistico as well. As someone who is working with patients, running these tests, really kind of being in a very front-facing, interactive role with our community that's coming in with symptoms and concerns, what's being done as a healthcare worker to protect yourself? Because the two of you are really dealing with this on the front lines as people are coming in with concerns to be treated. So what steps are you taking as individuals that work in the healthcare industry to make sure that you're protected from this?
So infections aren't new to the healthcare industry by any means. So this is, long-standing. We've had a variety of other very contagious, very infectious diseases that have gone through our healthcare industry. But so we've long since been started, we use personal protective equipment, so that would include gloves, gowns, you'll see sometimes face shields, masks, those kind of things. So depending on what type of infection it is, those are the kind of things that we use for our staff to help keep them safe. Other things that I see staff do is make sure that they use, separate shoes or separate uniforms, things like that, where they're, making sure that they're making a clear delineation, like we talked about, from what's your work clothes versus what's your home clothes.
Okay, and then Dr. Nistico, Superintendent Douglas mentioned this term a couple of times. We keep hearing flatten the curve, and we're hearing it a lot in terms of the impact, particularly to our local hospitals, not just here locally, but really on a nationwide scale here in the United States. What does that term mean? Can you break that down for us?
So the concerning thing about flattening the curve would be the amount of cases that we're seeing currently are exponentially growing on a daily basis. And our concern is what we're doing as a community, and we're doing a good job and we're doing all we can, and everybody out there is doing as much as they can to try to help this situation, is to try to reduce the amount of new cases that we're seeing on a daily basis. And you may hear that the cases may continue to rise, but what all we do now will impact the future. So that's what's important. Not to say that a day from now we may see more cases, but in the future, say in a few weeks, we may start to see improvement. And that's the way everyone's working with all of these new changes we're seeing.
And now I don't want to speculate, but I know that we do have between Cayuga Health, Ardent Health, and Guthrie Health, 3 systems, primary systems in our area. You have to prepare for an influx of cases and people taking up beds in your hospitals. So how are your systems preparing for that possibility as we continue to learn new things and see these cases grow really day by day?
So currently we have a task force that meets multiple times a day with multiple disciplines and specialties and medical providers. We have great administration and leadership that have been working really hard to try to do as much as we can to prepare for cases. If we were to see a surge, is what we would see a lot more cases in one particular area. And we're working with other hospitals in the area, tertiary care centers, which are big university centers, to try to find the best way to combat any situation that would arise, because each day has been changing and it's been different. But that's what we've been doing predominantly.
Okay.
And I'll speak to that as well. Emergency preparedness is something that's been going on in hospitals for years and years. So we already had a good plan in place with a lot of moving parts. But right now what is a little different, as we've kind of systemized a little bit more, is making sure that at each entity level that there's a command center set up there, and they're all reporting over system-wise. So being able to share those resources and making sure that we're standardizing across the system, making sure our messages are going out the way they should be, and that staff is involved in knowing what the decisions are and knowing the guidance as we're getting it from, you know, PA Department of Health, New York State Department of Health, CDC. As you said, all that stuff keeps changing every day. So very similar. We all kind of have those same structures in place.
Dr. Douglas, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about how this virus and how we're responding to it is impacting our local education. I know right now a lot of school districts, particularly in the southern tier, but in the northern tier too, but the structure is a little bit different here in New York State. School districts are working on formulating their budgets for the upcoming school year. We're seeing how this is impacting operations in Albany at our state capitol, really slowing things down, and that has a trickle-down impact on our local school districts. Yeah. So are you able to weigh in on how this could potentially have an impact on your school budget for next year's academic year?
Yeah. The hard part in New York is our budgets are prescribed by law, how we develop them, our cap, as well as when we can vote on them, which we're awaiting guidance on that, because usually for us it sort of moves fast forward right around April 1st, or that's typically when we've had a budget. And then we rush to the middle of April to get that budget finalized and then ready for the voter and communicate it out. We really have not heard much at this point, because I think the legislature and the governor's office have to really put that, I hate to say, on the back burner right now to address this issue. But that leaves a very big void. Like, I have a board meeting that we are going to do under social distancing tomorrow night, and we're going to present the last part of our budget, but we're really sort of shooting in the dark right now. So we're waiting to find out the guidance, and then just like us, my colleagues will move forward. We're just waiting to see.
And I want to talk to you a little bit about athletics.
Oh, that's the hardest part for our kids, our families, because this is the heart of spring sports. We had a championship at the end of the winter sports, and some were able to get their championship in, others were not. We started the first week of sports last week, and we finished with tryouts, and what happens is we're starting to shift into that spring season. We had trips going to Myrtle Beach, we had trips going across New York State. All of them have been placed on hold. The teams have been selected, I think, for most districts, but until we know we're coming back, we just don't know what to tell them. But here's the big thing. I know it's hard on kids. Keep working out, but do it at home. Don't get together in small groups. That's going to help exacerbate an issue. But that's the hard part, that snowstorm. Stay there. If you have a brother and sister, small isolated groups around your home. But we really need people, as much as possible, without saying it's shelter in place, to stay home and stay off the playgrounds, the communities where people would normally gather. That will help. As we know more, and if this moves a little quicker, we might be able to salvage part of our sports season. But I just don't know at this point. As soon as we know, we'll make that. It's just like extracurricular activities. We were scheduled to have a junior prom right when we got back from spring break, which is around the 14th. It was next weekend. We have already postponed that, and we're going to combine it into one gala. I think it's on May 30th. But again, for everybody, it's waiting to know, because what is this timeline going to be?
So here's a question, because it's just something that gets thrown out there, and maybe we're hearing a lot because We're, as a news organization, covering this issue day in and day out, and it's a criticism that we get. So I want to ask our healthcare professionals, are we all just overreacting? Is this just something that it's the latest thing for everybody to freak out over, and it's not really that big of a deal, and we're just going to look back on this and think this is all really silly? So I'll start with Dr. Nisko.
So currently, I think the situation is severe at what we're currently looking at. Because the amount of cases worldwide, it's a new virus that we've never seen before, and we're learning how to combat it day by day. The amount of severe cases that are leading to deaths in this entire world is actually quite high for the amount of cases that are out there. But I think the severity of the actual virus, people should take very seriously, because it is important to know the facts at this current time, because as days go on, the importance of the news and the outlets that are out there to help the community understand it is quite important. So I think the most important advice to give is that people should take this seriously.
Now, Nurse Shah, we, again, just kind of on that point, we know that the flu is far more rampant. It kills far more people annually. So again, just to try to play devil's advocate a little bit, why are we so concerned with COVID-19 as opposed to the flu?
It's, again, the newness of it. So what we have seen and what we're learning is all new, what we're getting out of China and Italy and Spain and other countries that have been impacted as well. Now that we're seeing it within the United States, we're learning about this every day. And what we have learned so far is that we really need to be cautious, and we need to do the things that we can do to really flatten that curve, to not stress the healthcare system beyond the limits what we've seen in other countries.
Okay, and I want to go back to maybe a couple more questions coming in through Facebook Live. Let's check in again with Nick Quattrini, who's been monitoring your questions on the WENY TV News Facebook live stream. Nick, you got any more questions you can toss out to our guests?
Yes, I do. Melissa wants to know, if you are sick with a sore throat and a runny nose and you have been out in the public, should you worry?
All right, Nurse Shah, you okay with answering that one?
Sure. I think it's a rough season, right? So we're heading into allergy season, myself and my family. It's always a high allergy season in the springtime. Runny noses and sore throats are kind of rampant, but that's our usual. So looking back through our own times, we can say, yep, last year at this time it was sort of the same. The year before it was sort of the same. If you have any concerns, you have a variety of ways to contact either your own primary care provider. We have an app called Guthrie Now, so we have some telemedicine options for people. So those are some ways that you can kind of contact and talk about the things that have been going on with you personally, medically, and get more of the answers that are very much more personal to what you are experiencing.
Okay, let's take another one.
Somebody asked, Sean asked, is COVID-19 a beta virus? I'm not exactly sure what that means.
Say that again. A what?
Is COVID-19 a beta virus?
A beta virus.
Beta. I think it's a beta.
I mean, it's part of the family of beta coronaviruses, but just a specific type of virus that goes along the same lines of the beta coronaviruses, which are SARS, as we all know from the past, as well as the Ebola virus. They belong to the same family of viruses. Those particular viruses, what makes them unique is they come specifically from wildlife. That's where the virus originates.
Okay, and now how about, Nick, let's do one more.
One more question. Give me 1 second. Somebody wanted to know, is there going to be a cure for this or a vaccine?
So we have been hearing that there is a vaccine in development. Dr. Nisko, is that something you're...
Yeah, so there is a vaccine that's in development. They are working very hard to try to develop one vaccine for it. It takes a long time with the appropriate caution to take so that the testing is foolproof, so that people don't have as many side effects with the vaccine. The treatments for it, right now we have quite a few treatments that we can use to try to combat it if there are severe cases, meaning very high-risk patients in the hospital. Some of them are antiviral medications that we've been using on top of some newer antiviral medications that have been put out by pharmaceutical companies to be used in severe situations, or what we call compassionate use. But that has been what we know. We've been stocking up on quite a few treatments for a while, as well as a lot of other hospitals in the region. But there are treatments that we could try to employ to help combat the virus.
Okay, so I think that about wraps up our program this evening, but before we say goodbye, I'm just going to go through, I'll start with you, Nurse Shaw, and kind of go down the line. If there's anything that you want to share with the community on behalf of your organizations, or just something that you'd like people to know as we really move through this and work through this as a community.
Absolutely. I think the biggest thing we would like to know, or we'd like to do, is to thank the community for everything they're doing. We understand this is a lot of sacrifices, this is a lot of fear that people are facing right now, and we really appreciate everything that you're doing. Even though it doesn't seem like there's activity, perhaps, on a lot of people's end, there is a lot of activity in the healthcare system, so we do appreciate everything the community is doing.
I think a very important thing to tell the community out there is to make sure that people are washing their hands, and to be cautious of individuals that are elderly, so that to make sure they're taken care of, and to try to distance ourselves from individuals who we know are sick or coming down with something. I think the medical community thanks everybody that's out there who is pretty much putting in 100% to try to combat this whole situation.
And Dr. Douglas?
The schools, the superintendents cannot thank everybody enough. Like I said, we're trying to address food care for many students across our areas. In addition, we just really want to make sure that everybody's taking care of themselves. Really look to your neighbor, and most importantly, look to the veterans, the seniors that are there. A lot of times these individuals will not say they need help, but it's really about all of us pulling together. Georgia Verdier said at a meeting the other night, the African proverb, it takes a whole village to raise a child. Well, it's very appropriate here, but we got to remember we're all the villagers, and we all have responsibility to care for each other. And that's what I'd ask. This is a time that defines us. Let's make it one of the best times for this generation, and to help health care, to help school, but in general to help the city, the towns, and the villages, for the communities to come together. And the more we can do that and push through, we will get through this.
Well, I want to thank the three of you for being in here in our studio tonight. And again, thank you also to the doctor from Cayuga Health for joining us and talking to us live on location. Again, I just want to reiterate that we are all in this together, whether you're in education, whether in your healthcare, part of the news media. We're all in this together. This is all of our communities. It's our children that are being affected, our jobs that are being affected, and we're all going to get through this. I think this was a really great conversation to have. I'd like to maybe do this again sometime in the near future, and if we do that, we'll of course be informing you as well. But thank you to everyone who tuned in to watch this WENY special presentation. Have a good night.